You know, that quiet moment when you just sit down, maybe in the morning, maybe at night, and you try to pay attention to your breath, just the rise and fall of it. And then suddenly a little question pops up like it was waiting there all along. Who is watching my breath? Just that. Simple. Tiny. But it feels huge, right? Like, maybe this question is the one that matters most. Or maybe it's just a trick of your mind, teasing you. Hey, if you like sitting with these questions, maybe stick around and subscribe. We explore them gently here together. I want to share something about this watcher inside your mind. Many of us assume there's a little person behind everything, a self-controlling, steering, noticing. And the truth is, maybe not. The Buddha, centuries ago, said that thoughts just happen. They rise and fall. There's no tiny captain inside you telling the thoughts where to go. It's kind of wild to imagine it that way, isn't it? You think you are thinking, but maybe there's no thinker at all. It's okay if that feels strange. Our language, our I am this, I am that, makes it feel like there's someone there, but maybe it's just the way words trick us. Sometimes I like to think of awareness like a mirror. You know, a mirror doesn't hold on to what it sees. You can wave in front of it. You can smile. The sun can shine to the window. The mirror just reflects. It doesn't say, hey, this is me. And maybe, just maybe, that's what awareness does too. Thoughts, feelings, memories, they come and go. Awareness notices them, but it doesn't grab them. It doesn't claim them. And that can be kind of comforting, like a gentle whisper saying, it's okay, you don't have to carry all of this. Maybe you felt that moment, sitting quietly, noticing yourself noticing. It can feel almost magical at first, like, now I found myself. But here's the tricky part. That feeling of a watcher, that sense that you're the one watching, it may also be a little illusion, just another ripple in the stream. Thoughts about thoughts, noticing of noticing. And even though it feels so real, maybe there's no one there at all. It's okay. Really, it's okay. The mind can play these subtle games, and our instinct is to cling, to want to center a self. But what if you didn't have to? What if just noticing softly was enough? I like to imagine this in a quiet way, almost like a soft conversation with myself. You know, sitting and thinking, there's noticing and noticing, and it's all okay. Maybe you can picture a breeze passing over your face, carrying thoughts along like leaves on the wind. And maybe for a moment, you don't even need to label them. You don't need to say, that's me, that's mine. You just watch. You just breathe. You just sit. And maybe if it feels right, you let the question fade a little. Who is watching? And just rest in the quiet that was there before the question even arrived. And isn't that kind of beautiful? That maybe the mind is a storyteller, weaving its tales, but underneath it all, there's a calm space where nothing needs fixing, nothing needs defending. And that's okay, too. If you're enjoying sitting with these little whispers, these gentle explorations of mind and self, I'd love for you to hit subscribe. We can sit with these questions together, slowly, quietly, like friends sharing secrets. So maybe in the next few minutes, just notice your breath, your thoughts, the feeling of watching. Don't push. Don't chase. Don't look for a solution. Just let it be like the softest kind of listening. And maybe, just maybe, in that soft listening, you'll begin to feel what it is to watch without needing a watcher. And if you like, we'll keep exploring this together in the next part. Because this space, it's really where the magic quietly happens. Maybe now you notice something stirring inside. A little heat rising in your chest. a tightness in your shoulders, your hands clenching without even realizing it. And a thought quietly appears. I'm angry. It feels obvious, doesn't it? Like a fact. But maybe it's not quite what it seems. Maybe anger isn't a solid thing at all. Maybe it's just a mix of tension, of quick thoughts, of your heart beating faster and the breath tightening. All of it coming together, then passing away. And the funny thing is, nowhere in all of that is there a little you orchestrating it. It's okay if that feels strange. Our minds are wired to believe there's someone at the helm, making sense of it all. But maybe there isn't. And then there's that second little voice. I know I'm angry. You hear it, soft and calm, almost proud. Now I'm watching myself. Now I've got some distance. This is what people call awareness, like stepping back from the storm and observing it. And yet maybe this voice, this observer, is just another ripple on the same stream. Another part of the mind, conditioned, arising and passing. It seems like progress, but it's not some permanent watcher. Just another wave. I remember a friend telling me about a fight she had with her sister. After the argument, she sat down, feeling that familiar tightness in her chest. And she noticed herself thinking, I'm watching this. I'm not reacting anymore. She felt proud, like she'd reached some enlightened place. But as soon as she walked back into the kitchen, she snapped at the dog for barking. That's the thing. Awareness can feel calm, detached, spiritual, and yet it's still part of the stream, still moving, still conditioned, still just a layer. It's okay. Really, it's okay. And then there's a third layer, the trickiest one. Perhaps, the voice whispers softly. I'm watching myself get angry, calm, detached, almost serene. Many people stop here. They think, finally I found the true self, the quiet watcher behind the chaos. But even that, the Buddha taught, is just another layer. It feels still, but it moves. It feels solid, but it changes. Like a wave thinking it's the whole ocean. The wave doesn't control the ocean. It is shaped by wind, by tide, by moonlight. And so are we. Awareness itself, the thing we think is steady, is shaped by what we see, what we hear, our fears, desires, and memories. There's no captain steering this ship. Maybe you can picture it this way. You're sitting by the ocean at night. Waves crash gently, some higher, some softer, all moving. And you notice a particular wave that seems calmer, quieter, almost like it's observing the others. You might be tempted to say, that's me, that's the self. But if you watch carefully, that wave is still water, still part of the ocean, still moving, still changing. Nothing permanent, nothing separate. That's the subtlety of these layers of awareness. And it's okay if your mind keeps clinging to center. It's natural. It's human. Sometimes I like to try a little experiment. Softly, quietly. When a thought arises, I'm angry, I'm anxious, I'm sad, I simply notice it and add in my head, this is happening. Just that. Not, I am angry. Not, this is mine. Just, this is happening. It's a small shift, a tiny word change, but somehow it loosens the grip of the me in the story. And the mind, being clever, sometimes protests, wait, who is saying that? Who is noticing? And I smile softly, whispering, it's okay, just noticing, that's all. And then maybe for a moment, something soft opens up, a little space, a little lightness. And here's the gentle truth. All of this, the layers, the observer, the watcher, even the quiet voice claiming it's seeing, all of it is conditioned, all of it passes. And that's not scary. Not at all. It's freeing. Because when you see that nothing is fixed, nothing belongs, there's nothing to defend, nothing to protect, just a movement of experience, a rising and falling, and maybe for a few seconds or maybe minutes, you just sit there, breathing, feeling, noticing, and in that soft, quiet noticing, you may feel a kind of peace that isn't dependent on getting it right or being calm or achieving anything at all. It's just here. If you've been enjoying this gentle journey so far, maybe take a second to subscribe. We'll sit with these thoughts together, softly, quietly, exploring without needing answers, like friends sharing little secrets of the mind. And maybe in the next part, we'll see even more of how these layers can trick us, how the mind weaves stories around self, and how simply noticing without clinging can bring a surprising kind of freedom. But for now, it's okay to just breathe, to just notice, to just be. Maybe by now, you've started noticing how the mind is a master storyteller. Quietly, without anyone really noticing, it begins weaving a narrative, like a movie where you are always the main character. Successes, failures, joys, losses, all strung together seamlessly, so it feels like there's a real you at the center, observing it all, reacting, feeling. But here's the curious thing. The story doesn't need a permanent me to feel alive. The mind simply pieces moments together, memory, habit, language, emotion, and voila, there appears a self. Isn't it funny how convincing it is? And isn't it okay to notice how convincing it is, without judgment? I remember a friend who had spent years meditating. She would watch thoughts rise and fall, and often she felt that calm in her presence. The watcher she thought was finally real. But in everyday life, stress would hit, deadlines would loom, someone would cut her off in traffic, and that calm watcher would vanish like mist. She would be angry, frustrated, anxious, and then she would notice, oh, here comes a little voice again. I am observing myself. It felt steady, reliable, spiritual. But then she began to see, softly, that even that watcher was just another part of the story. It wasn't fixed. It wasn't permanent. It arose, it passed. And that's the subtle trap, maybe the trickiest one. Even advanced meditators, even people who feel like they've seen through the layers, can fall into this hope. The hope that somewhere behind all the chaos, there's a silent, pure, untouchable self. A calm observer that never changes, never gets hurt, never wavers. That idea can feel like a sanctuary, comforting, and yet it's still just another pattern, another layer, another ripple in the stream. Even the watcher is watched. Even the quietest voice is part of the mind's movement. And that's okay. Really, it's okay to notice this. To let the hope be there and just watch it. 2. Think of it like sitting in a forest. You hear birds, rustling leaves, a squirrel scurrying along a branch. You notice them. Maybe you even smile at the squirrel's little antics. Then you notice yourself noticing. And maybe if you're really paying attention, you notice the noticing itself, the gentle awareness that is there without needing to label anything. That a little taste of what this teaching points to, layers upon layers, stories upon stories, yet at the core, openness, quiet, space. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to own it. Just sitting there is enough. And sometimes, in those quiet moments, it's like the mind relaxes its grip just a little. You notice that thought, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't feel this, I need to be fixed. And instead of grabbing it, twisting it, or claiming it as yours, you just see it. And something soft happens. A little freedom, a little relief. And maybe it's the first time in a long time that you don't feel the need to defend the self, to protect it, to prove it. You just notice. I like to use tiny exercises like this. When a strong feeling comes, just whisper to yourself softly, "This is happening." That's all. It's okay. Not, "I am angry," not, "I must fix this." Just, "It's happening." You may notice a smile starting quietly, a lightness that creeps in without fanfare. Maybe your shoulders drop a little, the tightness in your chest softens, and maybe you even catch yourself thinking, "Oh, the self I thought I had?" It's okay that it's not permanent. It doesn't need to be. Sometimes our stories and habits keep tugging at us. They pull us back into identify with self that's always watching, always judging, always needing. But when you see how the mind weaves those stories, gently, without force, you realize that even the tug is just another wave. You can notice it, and you don't have to hold on. And that's a kind of freedom that whispers rather than shouts, a peace that grows slowly, quietly, almost without notice. If you've been sitting with me in this soft space, exploring these ripples, maybe you'd like to subscribe. We'll keep coming back to these gentle moments, these quiet observations, like friends leaning together in the hush of a late evening, sharing secrets no one else can hear. Because the beauty of this journey isn't in knowing or fixing anything. It's in the noticing, the small pauses, the spaces between waves. It's soft, subtle, alive. And maybe the next time a thought arises, I'm frustrated, I'm lost, I need to find myself, you'll remember, the layers are just layers. You don't need to climb to the top to discover some hidden self. You don't need to grasp, control, or define. You just notice. You just breathe. You just sit. And maybe, in that noticing, a quiet, tender freedom begins to bloom, almost like a tiny light you hadn't realized was there all along. Maybe now, as you sit quietly, you begin to notice how clever the mind can be, not in a mean or sneaky way, just subtle. It doesn't need loud tricks or drama. It quietly weaves stories about you, about who you are, what you've done, what you should be. And the stories feel so real. They feel like you, but maybe they're just patterns stitched together by memory, habit, and words. It's okay to notice that. It's okay to watch them without rushing to fix them. I think of a friend who told me about a day she spent completely lost in her own mind. She replayed a conversation over and over, twisting and turning it, imagining what she should have said, what she should have done. And she realized slowly, softly, that the I caught in the story wasn't really there. It was just a series of thoughts strung together, giving the impression of a solid self. And when she saw that, even just a little, there was a strange relief. She didn't have to defend the story. She didn't have to prove it or fix it. She could just notice. And maybe in that noticing, a little space opened up, a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The Buddha would say something gentle here. It's okay that these stories appear. Don't try to chase them away. Don't try to kill them. Just see that they're there, arising and passing, without ownership. Sometimes, even the language we use reinforces the illusion of a self. I am angry, I am sad, I am happy. Words feel so small, so simple, yet they quietly confirm the belief that someone owns a feeling, someone's behind it. But try this for a moment. Shift the words. Say softly in your mind, anger is present or sadness arises. Small change, gentle shift. And maybe, just maybe, the grip of the I loosens a little. And then there's that quiet hope, the last trap in the mind's clever playbook. The hope that behind it all, there is a pure, stable self. A silent observer who never falters, who is untouched by chaos, always watching. It's comforting, isn't it? We love that idea. We clutch it sometimes like a tiny life preserver in a stormy sea. But the teaching whispers softly. Even that observer is part of the mind story. It's a wave on the ocean, shaped by the wind, by tide, by moonlight. It looks solid, looks safe, but it moves. It changes. And it's okay to notice that. Really, it's okay. I like to imagine it as sitting in a quiet garden. Maybe there's a soft wind, a bird chirping, leaves shifting. You notice the beauty, the sound, the movement. Then you notice yourself noticing. And then you notice the noticing itself. A gentle awareness that arises without needing to claim it, label it, or fix it. That's what this teaching points to. Layers upon layers, ripples upon ripples. And in the center, softly, quietly, there's just space. A kind of open, tender quiet. Sometimes in that space, you feel your shoulders relax. The tightness in your chest softens. You don't need to defend yourself, prove yourself, or find yourself. The mind can do its little tricks. The stories can spin, the layers can pile up, and you can just notice, breathe, sit, let them come and go. Maybe for the first time, you see the stories of what they are, patterns, conditioned events, flickers of consciousness. And in that seeing, a subtle freedom begins to appear. If you've been with me in this gentle space, exploring these stories and layers together, maybe take a quiet second to subscribe. We can keep returning here, slowly, softly, like friends leaning in to share little secrets of the mind. Because the journey isn't about fixing, controlling, or finding a permanent self. It's about noticing, watching without clinging, breathing without grasping. And maybe in that simple, gentle noticing, a quiet peace can settle in your heart, like sunlight warming the earth after a long night. And so, in the next part, we'll explore even more subtle layers, the invisible traps of the mind, the way it convinces us we need a self, and how simply resting and noticing can begin to dissolve these illusions. But for now, maybe just sit a little longer. Breathe. Let the ripples move. Notice the soft spaces between them. Let the mind do its thing. And quietly, gently, just watch. Maybe by now, you're starting to notice something quiet, subtle, almost hidden. How the mind can trick you without any effort, without any drama. It doesn't need flashy distractions. It doesn't need loud alarms. It simply uses time, memory, and language to weave a story that feels real, alive, permanent. And the story is always about you. Always. Your joys, your failures, your fears, your hopes. It all comes together to create this sense of the self who lives at the center. And the thing is, it's so convincing that we forget to question it. And that's okay. It's human. I remember a story a friend shared with me. She was sitting in her kitchen, drinking coffee, thinking about an argument she'd had earlier in the week. As she replayed it in her mind, she caught herself saying silently, "I am the one who was wrong. I am the one who overreacted." And then, softly, she tried a different thought. This is happening. These feelings are present. Just a small shift. And she noticed, almost like sunlight sneaking into a dark room, that the tightness in her chest eased a little. The story didn't vanish. It was still there, but she no longer needed to clutch it as if it were herself. And in that small noticing, something tender, freeing, began to emerge. The mind, you see, has a subtle set of invisible traps. One of them is the storyteller trap. The illusion that the story is you, that the plot and the protagonist belong to a permanent self. But the story is just a series of moments strung together. The protagonist isn't real in the way we usually assume. It's like watching a film. Each frame alone doesn't move, but put together, they create the illusion of motion, life, a person moving through time. And it's okay to watch that film without needing to step into the frame, to claim it, to say, that's me. Another trap hides in our words. Simple words like, I am angry, I am sad, I am happy. They seem harmless, everyday, even comforting. But beneath them lies the quiet assumption that there's an I experiencing the feeling, that someone is choosing suffering or controlling it. And the Buddha, softly, gently, would suggest a little experiment. Shift the language. Say, anger is present, sadness arises. Just that, small, subtle whisper-like. And that tiny shift begins to loosen the mind's grip, softening the illusion of ownership, letting space appear where there wasn't before. And then there's the hope trap, the subtlest of them all. It's the hope that somewhere, behind all of this chaos, there's a pure, steady, untouched self, a calm observer, watching without being touched by the storm. It's comforting, isn't it? That thought can feel like a life preserver in a rough sea. But even that observer, gentle as it feels, is just another wave, shaped by conditions, arising and passing, moving like the tide. And it's okay to notice it for what it is. I like to imagine it like this. Sitting in a quiet field at dusk, the wind brushing softly, the leaves rustling, a bird singing somewhere far away. You notice the sounds. You notice the colors of the sky. You notice yourself noticing. And then, softly, almost imperceptibly, you notice the noticing itself, a gentle awareness that doesn't cling, that doesn't judge, that doesn't need to fix or own anything. Just noticing. That's the heart of it. Layers of experience, waves upon waves. But underneath, softly, quietly, there is space. And it's enough. Sometimes, when you rest in that space, even for a few moments, the stories, the worries, the tightness, they don't vanish, but they lose their grip. The urge to defend, to protect, to prove a self softens. And a strange, tender peace begins to bloom. A quiet sense that it's okay to just be here, with the mind moving as it moves, with thoughts rising and falling, with feelings appearing and fading. It's okay to just notice and let go. If you've been with me so far, breathing softly through these whispers, noticing the stories, the layers, the little waves of self, maybe take a moment to subscribe. We can sit in this gentle exploration together, quietly, without needing answers or solutions, like friends sharing the softest secrets to heart. Because the journey isn't about chasing a self, finding a permanent watcher, or fixing the mind. It's about noticing. It's about letting the layers unfold naturally, without clinging, without fear, without judgment. And in that noticing, a gentle, tender freedom begins to emerge, almost like a light you didn't realize was already there. And so, maybe the next time a thought comes, I need to be stronger, I shouldn't feel this, I am not enough, you can try to just notice it. See it arise. Let it pass. Whisper softly, this is happening. It's okay. And in that soft space, that tiny pause between waves, a quiet peace begins to settle in. And maybe, slowly, tenderly, you begin to remember. The mind is clever. The self is layered. And yet, even amidst the stories, there is this gentle, unclaimed space that is always quietly enough. Maybe by now, you've started noticing how subtle the mind's movements can be. You think you're sitting quietly, maybe noticing your breath, maybe noticing a thought, and then you realize the mind has already begun weaving its story. It's so quiet, so smooth, that it almost feels invisible. A feeling arises, sadness, anxiety, irritation, and immediately the mind begins adding character to it. I am sad, I am anxious, I am failing. And suddenly, the little I feels real, solid, urgent. But maybe, just maybe, that I is not who you really are. Maybe it's just a ripple, one wave in the vast ocean of your experience. I remember a friend describing a day when she was overwhelmed with worry. Her thoughts kept looping, telling her story after story. She noticed a tension in her chest, the quickening of her heartbeat, and for a moment she paused and said softly to herself, "This is happening. It's okay." Not, "I am overwhelmed." Not, "This is mine." Just gently acknowledging the experience. And she felt a tiny shift, like a window opening in a stuffy room. She could feel the story still moving, still alive, but she no longer had to carry it as herself. It's subtle, but in that subtlety there is freedom. And here's something fascinating. Even the quietest voice, the gentle observer that seems to sit calmly behind the waves, is itself a part of the movement. It arises, it shifts, it passes. There's no permanent watcher, no untouched self. The Buddha's teaching whispers softly here. Each layer, each moment of noticing, each thought about thoughts, all of it is conditioned, all of it passes. And it's okay to see it that way. There's nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing to fear. I like to imagine it as sitting beside a stream, watching water flow. At first, your attention is on the ripples, the currents, the little leaves floating along. Then you notice the act of watching itself, your awareness of the stream. And then if you let it settle, you notice the noticing itself, a quiet space, a gentle presence that isn't trying to own anything, isn't trying to fix anything, just is. It's soft, tender, alive. And maybe for the first time, you feel that being aware doesn't require a self at all. Sometimes, even when we meditate for years, even when we practice noticing thoughts and emotions, there's a subtle hope that behind it all, there's a pure, stable self, a calm, silent observer. It's comforting, isn't it? That hope can feel like a little sanctuary. But gently, softly, you might notice that it's just another layer, another ripple. Even the quiet observer arises from conditions shaped by your experiences, your senses, your memories, your habits. And it passes like a wave in the ocean, like clouds drifting across the sky. You can try a small practice here, softly, without forcing anything. When a feeling comes, irritation, fear, longing, frustration, just notice it. Whisper to yourself, "This is happening." Not, "I am angry." Not, "This is mine." Just, "This is happening." Watch it arise. Watch it pass. And if a story starts to form around it, "I am failing. I shouldn't feel this." Gently notice that too. Let it unfold naturally, like watching shadows move on the wall. And maybe, slowly, almost imperceptibly, you feel a space open in your heart. Tender, soft, quiet. The beauty of this approach is that you don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to control anything. The mind can spin its stories. The layers can pile up. The waves can crash and flow. And you can simply notice. Breathe. Sit. Let the experience be without ownership, without clinging. And in that gentle noticing, a subtle freedom begins to emerge. It's quiet, almost imperceptible, but it's there, and it's enough. If you've been sitting with me here, gently exploring these layers, maybe take a soft moment to subscribe. We can keep returning to this gentle space together, quietly, softly, noticing without chasing, resting without clinging, like friends leaning in to share small, tender secrets of the mind. The journey isn't about finding a permanent self. It isn't about solving the story. It's about noticing, softly, gently, quietly, and maybe in that noticing, a kind of peace, a kind of gentle freedom begins to bloom, like a small light that was always there, quietly waiting. And so perhaps the next time a thought or a feeling arises, you can try to simply notice it. Let it come, let it go. Whisper softly, "This is happening. It's okay." And in that tender, quiet space between the waves, you might feel a subtle, gentle peace that doesn't depend on itself at all, only on the soft, quiet act of noticing. Maybe now, as you sit quietly, you start noticing clever ways the mind keeps you tied to the story of me. Not in a loud, obvious way, but gently, subtly, almost like a friend leaning in close and whispering, "Remember, you are the one living this life. You are the one reacting. You're the one who feels." And maybe it feels familiar, comforting even, and maybe, just maybe, it's okay to notice that without needing to fight it, without needing to fix it. I remember a friend telling me about a day she spent feeling completely frustrated at work. Emails were piling up, deadlines were looming, and every small mistake seemed magnified. She noticed a familiar inner voice saying, "I am failing, I am behind, I am not enough." And then, softly, almost like a breath between two heartbeats, she said to herself, "This is happening. That's all. It's okay." Just those few words. Noticing the story, but not owning it. And she felt a small, gentle shift. The tightness in her chest loosened, the weight on her shoulders softened, and the inner voice that demanded so much suddenly felt lighter. The mind is a master illusionist. It doesn't need loud tricks. Just time, just memory, just language. It quietly builds a sense of self, layer by layer, moment by moment. And the trickiest part is that it feels so real. Even when you've been meditating for years, even when you practice noticing thoughts, the mind can still tempt you into believing in a stable, silent observer. That quiet eye that's supposedly calm, detached, spiritual. It can feel like a sanctuary in a storm. And yet, gently, softly, you might notice it's just another layer. Another wave in the ocean, moving with the wind, shaped by conditions, passing with time. I like to use a small mental experiment sometimes. When a strong emotion arises, fear, sadness, irritation, or longing, I simply whisper to myself, "This is happening." Not, "I am sad," not, "This is mine." Just, "This is happening." And sometimes, almost magically, that tiny shift lets space open up, a small window where the mind can rest, where the tightness in the chest can soften, where the constant need to define, protect, or fix itself can pause. And in that soft space, even for a moment, you may feel a kind of gentle freedom that is both strange and comforting. And here's something tender to notice. Even the act of noticing itself is part of the flow. The gentle observer, the quiet voice that says, "I am watching, I am aware," even that is conditioned, arising and passing. There's no permanent self behind it. There's just awareness moving, like clouds drifting across the sky. And maybe the first time you notice that fully, you realize you don't need to hold on to a self at all. You can simply rest in the flow, in the gentle rise and fall of experience, and that can feel surprisingly safe, soft, even joyful. Sometimes you might imagine it like sitting in a quiet forest. The wind brushes the trees, the leaves rustle, birds sing. You notice the sounds, the colors, the movements. Then you notice yourself noticing. Then, if you soften even further, you notice the noticing itself, a gentle awareness that doesn't cling, that doesn't judge, that doesn't need to fix or own anything. It's soft, quiet, tender, and it's enough. It is more than enough. If you've been following along, sitting here with me in this gentle space, maybe take a moment to subscribe. We'll keep returning to this quiet noticing together, softly, without need, without rushing, like friends leaning close in a calm evening, sharing little secrets of the mind. The journey isn't about finding a permanent self. It isn't about controlling the mind. It's about noticing softly, tenderly, quietly. And in that gentle noticing, subtle freedom begins to bloom, like a faint light you didn't realize was already there. And so, maybe the next time a thought or feeling arises, I need to be strong, I shouldn't feel this, I am not enough, you can gently notice it. Whisper softly, this is happening. It's okay. And in that soft, quiet space between the waves, a peace begins to settle. A peace that doesn't need a self at all. A gentle freedom that only comes from softly, tenderly noticing, without ownership, without grasping, without fear. Maybe now, as you're sitting quietly, you can begin to notice how deeply the mind wants to keep you believing in a self. Not in a harsh, demanding way, but softly, almost kindly, like a parent nudging you towards safety. It reminds you of who you are, what you've done, what you failed at, what you should do next. And even when you're aware, even when you're trying to rest in noticing, it can be hard to let go. That me feels so familiar, so safe, so real. And that's okay. It's okay to notice it without needing to push it away. I remember a friend sharing a story about her morning. She was walking through a park, watching the sunlight shift across the grass. Thoughts arose, worries, reminders, plans for later. She noticed them, then gently whispered to herself, this is happening. That's all. Not, I am thinking, not, this is mine, just softly acknowledging the flow of experience. And something shifted. A tight knot in her chest relaxed. Her shoulders softened, and she realized, almost with a smile, that she didn't need to chase a self or hold on to an observer. The thoughts were there, alive, moving, but she didn't have to own them. The mind, you see, is full of invisible traps. One of the cleverest is a hope trap. The subtle belief that behind it all, there's a stable, untouched self, calmly observing the chaos of life. It's comforting. It feels like a quiet sanctuary. And yet, softly, you might notice that it's just another layer. Another wave on the ocean. A rising, passing, shaped by conditions, by memory, by habit. Even the calm observer is conditioned, impermanent. And it's okay to notice that gently with curiosity, without judgment. Sometimes, I like to imagine it like sitting beside a river at sunset. You watch the water ripple and flow, notice the small leaves floating by, hear the distant bird song. Then you notice yourself noticing. Then, if you allow it, you notice the noticing itself, the quiet, soft awareness that doesn't cling, doesn't judge, doesn't need to control anything. And in that noticing, a tender kind of freedom appears. You don't need to define it. You don't need to name it. You just rest in it. Even when strong emotions arise, frustration, fear, sadness, this approach can help. Instead of I am angry or I am anxious, try softly saying, this is happening. Just noticing. And when a story begins to spin, I am failing, I shouldn't feel this. Simply watch the story rise and fall like clouds drifting across the sky. You may notice the tension in your chest ease, the mind's grip soften, a quiet space opening where there was none before. And here's something tender to hold on to. The layers of mind, the stories, the waves of emotion, they're all natural. They're all part of the flow. Even the quiet observer, the gentle witness, is part of the flow. Nothing permanent, nothing fixed, nothing to defend. And maybe for the first time, you feel a soft sense of relief, a subtle freedom, a quiet peace that doesn't depend on itself at all, but only on gently, tenderly noticing, resting in the soft space between waves. If you've been following along, gently exploring these layers with me. Maybe take a soft moment to subscribe. We can keep returning to the space together, softly, quietly, like friends leaning close in the calm of evening, sharing little secrets of the mind. The journey isn't about finding a permanent self. It isn't about fixing or controlling. It's about noticing softly, tenderly, quietly. And in that gentle noticing, a subtle peace begins to bloom, almost like a light that's always been there, quietly waiting. And so, next time a thought or feeling arises, I'm not enough, I'm overwhelmed, I need to change. Softly notice it. Whisper to yourself, this is happening. It's okay. Watch it rise, watch it pass, rest in the soft space between. And in that gentle, quiet space, freedom begins to appear. A freedom that doesn't need a self, that doesn't need ownership, that doesn't need control. Just gentle, tender noticing. Maybe now, as you're sitting quietly, you start noticing how deep the mind's tricks can go, not in a dramatic or frightening way, but softly, subtly, almost like shadows moving quietly across a room. The stories of me, I, myself, they feel so familiar, so real, so comforting. Even when you've been practicing noticing thoughts for a while, even when you've softened into the flow of awareness, the mind can still whisper gently, remember, you are here. You are the one feeling this. You are the one who is aware. And maybe, just maybe, it's okay to notice that whisper without rushing to chase it away. I remember a friend telling me about a rainy afternoon. She was sitting by a window, watching the water streak down the glass. Thoughts were rising and falling. Worries about work, worries about family, little memories from the past, small imaginings of the future. And she noticed how the mind kept building the story of herself at the center of it all. Then, softly, she said to herself, this is happening. That's all. No, I am sad. No, this is mine. Just a gentle acknowledgement of what was unfolding. And in that tiny shift, a subtle space opened. A soft pause where the stories didn't need to define her. She could feel the stories moving, alive, but she didn't need to hold on to them. One of the mind's most subtle traps is the storyteller trap. The idea that the narrative of your life belongs to a fixed self. It's clever. It weaves memories, desires, worries, and hopes into a coherent tale. And because it looks so real, it can be hard to notice that the story is just a story. Like watching a movie. The images move, the plot unfolds, and you feel like a participant. But if you pause and watch carefully, you realize that no permanent I is needed for the story to exist. The story simply arises moment by moment, like ripples on a pond. Another trap hides in the language we use every day. Phrases like, I am angry, I am sad, I am happy. Simple, harmless words, yet quietly convincing. They suggest that someone owns the emotion, that someone is suffering, controlling, or experiencing. A gentle shift in words can make a world of difference. Saying softly, anger is present, sadness arises, joy comes and goes. It doesn't remove the feeling. It doesn't deny the experience. It just loosens the grip of the I, opening a tiny space of awareness where freedom can arise. And then there's a subtle hope trap. The quiet longing that behind it all, there's a stable, untouched self, a calm observer who sees everything clearly and remains unaffected. It feels comforting, like a small sanctuary inside your mind. And yet gently, you might notice that even this observer is just another ripple, arising and passing, shaped by conditions impermanent. It isn't real in the way we usually assume, and it's okay to notice that without fear or judgment. Imagine sitting in a quiet forest. You hear leaves rustling, the wind brushing the trees, distant birds singing. You notice the sounds, the colors, the movement. Then you notice yourself noticing. And if you soften even more, you notice the noticing itself, a gentle, tender awareness that doesn't cling, that doesn't judge, that doesn't try to control anything. That's where the subtle freedom lives. Not as a person, not as a self, but as a quiet openness that's always been here, quietly waiting. Even when emotions arise, irritation, longing, sadness, anxiety, this gentle noticing allows space. Instead of thinking, I am anxious or I am sad, you can softly say, this is happening. Watch the emotion arise. Watch it pass. Notice the story the mind wants to tell, but don't hold on to it. And in that space, the tightness in your chest may soften. The mind may quiet slightly, and a subtle peace may emerge. If you've been sitting here, gently exploring these layers with me, maybe take a quiet moment to subscribe. We can keep returning to this gentle space together, softly, tenderly, like friends leaning in on a calm evening, sharing the quiet secrets of the mind. The journey isn't about finding a permanent self or controlling the mind. It's about noticing softly, tenderly, quietly, and in that noticing, a gentle freedom begins to bloom, like a soft light that's always been here, quietly waiting, softly illuminating the present moment. And so, maybe the next time a thought arises, I'm not enough, I'm overwhelmed, I should be different, softly notice it. Whisper to yourself, this is happening. It's okay. Watch it arise. Watch it pass. And in that gentle, quiet space between waves, a subtle peace appears, a freedom that doesn't need a self, a calm that doesn't need ownership, a quiet openness that simply is. Maybe now, as you sit quietly, you begin to notice the full rhythm of the mind, the rise and fall of thoughts, the layering of emotions, the quiet pull of stories that try to convince you there's a self at the center. And maybe, just for a moment, you can notice it all without needing to fix it, without needing to solve it, without needing to understand it fully. That's okay. It's okay to sit with what is, to let the waves move, to let the stories arise, to let the feelings flow. And in that soft, quiet noticing, something gentle begins to appear, a kind of freedom that doesn't depend on self at all. I remember a story from a friend who had been struggling with constant worry. She would wake up thinking about all the tasks of the day, the conversations she had to have, the problems she needed to solve. And then one morning, she noticed her mind already spinning before she even opened her eyes. She whispered softly to herself, this is happening. That's all. Not, I am anxious. Not, this is mine. Just a gentle acknowledgement. And something shifted. A small window opened in the tight, restless energy. She could feel the thoughts moving, the emotions rising and falling. But she didn't need to hold them as hers. And in that tiny space, a soft peace began to bloom. The mind is clever. It layers illusions, builds stories, and even the quiet observer, the one who seemed to watch everything calmly, is itself part of flow. There's no permanent, untouched self behind it. Even the act of noticing is conditioned, arising and passing with time, shaped by memory, habit, and circumstance. And it's okay to notice that gently, without fear, without judgment. There's no need to chase or cling. The gentle unfolding is enough. Sometimes I like to imagine this. Sitting in a quiet field at dusk, the wind brushing softly, the leaves rustling, the skies slowly darkening. You notice the colors, the sounds, the movements. Then you notice yourself noticing. And then, if you soften even further, you notice the noticing itself, a quiet, Tender awareness that doesn't grasp, doesn't hold, doesn't define. And in that noticing, a subtle freedom appears. A freedom that isn't about controlling or owning anything, but simply resting the flow, soft and tender, alive in the present. Even when strong emotions arise, anger, sadness, fear, this gentle noticing allows space. Instead of saying, I am angry or I am sad, you might softly say, this is happening. Notice it rise, notice it pass. Watch the story the mind weaves, but don't hold on to it. And in that space, subtle peace emerges. The tightness in the chest softens. The racing of thought slows. A quiet calm appears, as if you're resting in a vast sky where clouds move freely, but the sky itself remains untouched. And perhaps the most tender part of all, even the questions we ask, who am I? Who is watching? Are themselves just waves, arising and passing. When we stop clinging to the idea that there must be an answer, a self, a permanent observer, the mind softens. The struggle to defend, to prove, to fix disappears. And in that soft, open space, freedom blooms quietly, gently, almost imperceptibly. But it's real, and it's enough. If you've been sitting with me here through these whispers, maybe take a soft moment to subscribe. We can continue exploring this quiet, tender space together, softly, like friends leaning close in the calm of evening, sharing small secrets of the heart. The journey isn't about finding a self. It isn't about controlling or understanding fully. It's about noticing softly, gently, tenderly. And in that noticing, freedom, peace, and quiet clarity begin to blossom slowly, like the softest light at dawn. So maybe the next time a thought arises, I am not enough, I am overwhelmed, I need to change. Softly notice it. Whisper, this is happening. It's okay. Watch it rise. Watch it pass. Notice the space between the waves, the stillness behind the movement, the tender openness that doesn't need a self. And in that gentle, quiet space, freedom begins to bloom, not as a grand realization, not as an achievement, but as a soft, tender knowing that the mind can move, the stories can spin, the waves can rise, and still, quietly, softly, there is always this gentle, open space, just watching. And somehow that is enough.